Ma'am, stop. Those are on my walkway. I'm removing these eyes. Deal with it. 6:47 a.m. I step out to find Brenda Clearwater, our smug HOA president, crouched like a thief, box cutter slashing my bright orange path markers to shreds. She stands, brushes off her designer jeans, and cackles like she just slayed the neighborhood ugly contest. I'm Miles, disabled combat vet. After an IED took my mobility overseas, a U.S. district judge ordered these exact ugly stickers under the ADA to safely guide my steps. Not optional, federal court order. She laughed while stomping the torn pieces, her HOA Boss Range Rover blocking my drive. Like vandalizing protected property was her morning cardio. What she doesn't know, tampering with a court-ordered accommodation is a serious federal violation. What would you do if this entitled Karen destroyed your disability aids while mocking you? Drop your city below. This story explodes next. 18 months ago, Carmen and I thought we'd found suburban paradise in Desert Winds Estates, Phoenix. Our 16-year-old daughter, Zoe, loved the community pool and made friends instantly. Carmen, a trauma nurse at Phoenix General, appreciated the silence after 12-hour shifts dealing with gunshot wounds and overdoses, and me after an IED explosion took my hearing and left leg mobility in Afghanistan. I just wanted peaceful space to rebuild my freelance IT consulting business. Desert Winds looked perfect. 847 homes built between 2018 to 2020. Mostly middle-class families and retirees, the sweet smell of chlorine from backyard pools. Morning sprinkler systems clicking like clockwork. Smooth river rocks and zeros escaped front yards. Even the sound of children playing felt like healing after years of military chaos. Then we met our HOA president. Brenda Clearwater treats neighborhood governance like she's running a fascist microstate. 52 years old, retired pharmaceutical sales manager, the kind who probably sold overpriced aspirin to nursing homes while smiling. She drives a white Range Rover with vanity plates reading HOA BOSSS. Not ironic, dead serious. This woman measures grass height with actual rulers, the metallic scraping echoing through morning air as she documents violations. Christmas lights past January 2nd. Christmas lights past January 2nd. Violation notice in your mailbox by dawn. The paper crisp with morning dew. Her signature moves include timing, how long garbage cans stay visible, and photographing any deviation from her vision of suburban perfection. Her inner circle enables this madness. Vice President Dale Pinkerton, an accountant who gets sexually aroused finding fee loopholes, handles the financial terrorism. Secretary Judy Whitmore runs neighborhood gossip like a CIA operation. Her perfume lingering wherever she's been spreading rumors. Together, they've transformed Desert Winds into their personal kingdom. The trouble started 6 months after we moved in. My left leg, courtesy of Afghan shrapnel and 3 reconstructive surgeries, doesn't work consistently. Good days, I'm fine. Bad days feel like walking through quicksand, especially on our concrete pathway from driveway to front door. So, I did what any reasonable person would. Applied for ADA accommodations. Simple stuff. Brighter pathway lighting, non-slip surface markers, bright orange reflective strips along walkway edges to guide my steps when balance fails. Standard accessibility modifications costing the HOA $0 since I'd fund everything personally. Brenda's response, absolutely not. This isn't some government housing project. Legal knowledge nugget. Under the Fair Housing Act, HOAs cannot deny reasonable accommodations for disabilities, regardless of aesthetic preferences. Violations carry penalties up to $100,000 for first offenses. 8 months of bureaucratic warfare followed. This entitled suburban dictator claimed my safety equipment would create architectural eyes, violating Desert Wind's visual harmony standards. She actually demanded I find less visible alternatives. Apparently, my disability should be invisible too. The taste of legal paperwork became my daily reality, as Brenda argued federal law shouldn't override HOA aesthetics, in writing, to federal mediators, like some petty tyrant declaring independence from American civil rights. When federal mediation failed, surprise, Brenda refused compromise. We landed in court. U.S. District Judge Patricia Hernandez, a non-nonsense woman who despises discrimination, listened to Brenda's lawyer explain why orange pathway markers would devastate property values. Judge Hernandez's response was swift and brutal. Immediate installation of court-ordered accommodations, including the bright orange pathway markers essential for my mobility. Safety, not suggestions. Federal court orders backed by the full weight of American law. That was 6 months ago. Losing in federal court should humble normal people. Instead, Brenda launched her aesthetic enforcement campaign. Basically, legal terrorism targeting my family. She couldn't legally touch my court-ordered accommodations, but everything else became ammunition. Trash cans improperly positioned, $75 fines. Carmen's car 3 and over the line. $100 penalties, garden hose visible from street. $50 violations. Even Zoe's wind chimes were excessively audible. Another $100. The pathway markers drove Brenda absolutely psychotic. She called them federally mandated ugliness and claimed they made desert winds look like a disability parking lot. Every board meeting, every neighborhood encounter she'd wire about my government-imposed eyes, like they were personal insults. Dale and Judy fed her obsession like drug dealers. They'd cruise by taking photos, measuring distances with tape measures, hunting for any excuse to challenge the federal orders. The harassment was calculated, relentless, designed to make us miserable enough to flee. This morning's box cutter rampage was Brenda finally snapping after 6 months of staring at evidence of her humiliating court loss. 2 weeks after Judge Hernandez's court order, Brenda called an emergency HOA board meeting. The community sent her wire of burnt coffee in desperation as she stood before 30 confused homeowners projecting PowerPoint slides like she was briefing the Pentagon. Desert Winds faces an unprecedented threat to our property values, she announced, clicking to a slide showing my orange pathway markers blown up to poster size. Federal overreach is forcing architectural eyes into our beautiful community. Dale Pinkerton nodded sagely from his front row seat, armed with a stack of printed property value studies from other neighborhoods. Similar federal mandates, he claimed, waving papers like evidence, have decreased home values by up to 15% in comparable communities. Complete __. But the crowd murmured nervously. I knew from my own research, something I'd learned during my disability rights crash course, that accessible community is actually increased property values because they attract more buyers. But Brenda wasn't interested in facts. Judy Whitmore stood up, her voice dripping fake concern. I've received multiple calls from worried residents about these installations. People are asking if this opens floodgates for other unsightly federal requirements. Then Brenda dropped her nuclear option. She'd actually printed petition forms demanding the city override federal accommodation mandates. The woman thought she could petition her way out of federal civil rights law. I almost laughed, remembering what Rebecca Torres had told me during our consultation. Attempting to circumvent federal disability accommodations through local petitions was like trying to vote your way out of gravity. Legally impossible and personally catastrophic for anyone stupid enough to try. But here's what this suburban dictator didn't know. I'd been recording everything. While Brenda rallied her troops, I was building my bulletproof defense. Arizona's one-party consent law meant every phone call, every doorstep confrontation, every friendly HOA interaction went straight into my digital evidence vault. Rebecca had smiled when I showed her my recordings. Miles, this woman is handing you a federal case on a silver platter. She's essentially declaring war on the Justice Department. The community split revealed Desert Wind's true character. About 60% signed Brenda's petition immediately, terrified their property values might drop if disabled people felt welcome, but 40% refused, and some approached me privately. Tom Rodriguez, a retired teacher who lived 3 houses down, knocked on our door the evening after the meeting. The smell of his wife's homemade tamales drifted from his kitchen as he stood on my porch glancing around nervously. Miles, this isn't right, he said quietly. My brother lost his leg in Vietnam. What Brenda is doing, it's not the America we fought for. Mrs. Soth, the America we fought for. Mrs. Sophie Smith, an elderly woman whose house backed up to ours, appeared the next morning with jasmine tea cookies that smelled like heaven. Brenda tried to find me for my garden Buddha statue, she whispered, called it non-Christian imagery. I know what persecution looks like, but others crossed the street to avoid us. Carmen noticed it first. Neighbors who'd previously waved, suddenly finding their phones fascinating when we walked by. Zoe came home from school reporting that several classmates' parents had instructed them to avoid that troublemaker family. The metallic taste of stress became my constant companion as Brenda's harassment escalated. By week 3, her petition had collected 127 signatures. She scheduled a presentation to the Phoenix City Council, claiming widespread community support for overriding federal disability law. The morning of her presentation, she made her first direct threat. I was checking mail when her Range Rover pulled into my driveway, an intimidation tactic she'd perfected. The engine's expensive purr cut through morning air as she stepped out, petitioned clipboard in hand like some suburban general. "This could all go away," she said, her voice sugar-sweet with underlying menace. "Remove those hideous markers. Find some discreet alternative, and I'll withdraw the petition. Keep fighting, and I'll make sure every homeowner knows you're the reason their property values are plummeting." The desert heat made asphalt soft under our feet as we faced off on my driveway. Her perfume, something floral and expensive, couldn't mask the stench of her desperation. "Brenda," I said calmly, "those markers are federal court orders. I couldn't remove them if I wanted to." Her smile turned predatory. "We'll see about that." That afternoon, Phoenix City Council politely explained to Brenda that municipalities cannot override federal court orders. Her petition was legally meaningless, exactly what Rebecca had predicted. But rather than accept defeat, Brenda doubled down. The taste of her humiliation hung in the desert air, like smoke from a distant fire. If she couldn't use legal channels to destroy my accommodations, she'd find other ways to make my family's life hell. Standing in my driveway that evening, watching her Range Rover disappear around the corner, I realized this was just the opening skirmish. Brenda Clearwater had just declared total war on a disabled veteran, and she had no idea what kind of enemy she'd made. The real battle was about to begin. Brenda's humiliation at City Council transformed her from neighborhood tyrant into full-blown domestic terrorist. Within 48 hours, she launched what I can only describe as suburban psychological warfare and made her first massive mistake. It started with my business, Phoenix Medical Group, called Tuesday morning. Dr. Tuesday morning. Dr. Tuesday morning. Dr. Dask, Sarah Mitchell's voice uncomfortable over the phone. "Miles, we received a concerning call about your stability. Someone claiming to represent your HOA suggested you might be experiencing personal difficulties affecting your work quality." The audacity stole my breath. Brenda had cold called my biggest client, spreading poison about my mental health. The metallic taste of rage filled my mouth as I processed this escalation. "Dr. Mitchell, did this caller provide specific examples of work problems?" I asked, my fingers already moving toward my recording app. "Well, no. Just vague concerns about neighborhood disruptions and ongoing legal troubles affecting your focus." Perfect. In Arizona, I'd learned that tortious interference with business relationships requires proving intentional economic harm. Brenda had just handed me evidence on a silver platter. But here's what this suburban sociopath didn't know. Dr. Mitchell was married to a disability rights advocate. Within an hour, I had the caller's exact words, timestamps, and a very angry doctor willing to testify about HOA harassment of disabled veterans. Meanwhile, Dale Pinkerton discovered his new hobby, surprise compliance audits, the smell of hot asphalt mixed with diesel fumes, as he appeared at my door with clipboard and measuring tape, crouching on my driveway like some demented crime scene investigator. "Just verifying setback requirements for your installations," he announced, photographing my pathway markers with the intensity of someone documenting a murder scene. I watched through my window as this pathetic man measured distances and scribbled notes, hunting desperately for any technicality to challenge my accommodations. The beautiful irony, every measurement confirmed my markers were exactly where Judge Hernandez ordered them. Dale was creating perfect documentation of my federal compliance. But Brenda's masterstroke was her enhanced community safety protocols, a WhatsApp group excluding my family, where Judy Whitmore spread carefully crafted lies about my aggressive behavior. Carmen discovered this digital assassination campaign when our neighbor Lisa Park approached her at Safeway, voice hushed with manufactured drama. "Carmen, home, some of us don't believe what's being said about Miles," Lisa whispered, glancing around like we were discussing state secrets. But Judy's sharing pretty disturbing stories about his confrontations with Brenda. The taste of injustice became constant as these people destroyed my reputation while I followed every law to the letter. Then, Brenda crossed the line that activated my nuclear option. Zoe burst through our front door Thursday afternoon, tears streaming, her backpack hitting the floor with a thud that echoed through our entryway like a gunshot. "Dad, they're saying you're dangerous," she sobbed. Rebecca Thompson's mom says I can't hang out with her anymore because our family is causing problems for the neighborhood. That's when something snapped inside me. Not rage, calculation, cold military precision I hadn't felt since Afghanistan. Watching my daughter pay for Brenda's vendetta triggered the same protective instincts that had kept my unit alive in combat zones. But this time, I had better weapons than rifles. While Brenda was busy terrorizing a 16-year-old girl, I was making phone calls she'd never see coming. Rebecca Torres connected me with the Phoenix FBI Civil Rights Division, where Agent Jennifer Walsh specialized in housing discrimination cases. "Mr. Rodriguez, interfering with your business relationships and targeting your family constitutes a pattern of retaliation under federal law," Agent Walsh explained during our call. "We'd like to begin monitoring this situation." The next morning, Tom Rodriguez knocked on our door with intelligence that confirmed my strategy was working. Evening barbecue smoke drifted from his backyard as he stood on my porch, face grim with purpose. "Miles, Brenda's planning something nuclear for next month's annual meeting," he whispered. "She wants to call a special vote to remove disruptive homeowners from the community." My blood ran cold, but not from fear, from anticipation. In most states, HOAs can't evict homeowners without cause. But Brenda was either too ignorant or too desperate to care about legal reality. "There's more," Tom continued. "Dale's talking about special assessments targeting your property, specifically something about increased insurance costs due to federal oversight." Perfect. Brenda had just escalated from harassment to outright retaliation, exactly what Agent Walsh needed to trigger a federal investigation. That evening, standing on my porch, watching the sunset over desert winds, I realized Brenda was building my case faster than I could have hoped. Every illegal action, every retaliatory move, every attack on my family was documented evidence for federal prosecutors. The smell of victory hung in the desert air like rain on hot pavement. Brenda thought she was winning this war. She had no idea she was actually financing her own destruction, one federal crime at a time. Brenda's desperation reached psychotic levels when she realized I wasn't backing down. 2 weeks before the annual meeting, she launched a scorched earth campaign that would make war criminals proud. It started with a phone call that froze my blood. Carmen answered while I debugged client code, her voice shifting from pleasant to arctic in seconds. "I'm sorry, you have the wrong number," she said, slamming the phone with force that rattled our kitchen counter. "Who was that?" "Some woman, claiming to be from the state nursing board." Carmen's voice shook with barely controlled fury. "Said they'd received concerning reports about my stability due to domestic stress affecting professional judgment." The audacity was breathtaking. Brenda had escalated from attacking my business to targeting Carmen's 15-year nursing career. The smell of Carmen's morning coffee turned bitter as we both processed how far this suburban terrorist was willing to go. But Brenda had made a catastrophic miscalculation. Attacking a trauma nurse's professional credentials meant Carmen was no longer a bystander. She was now a combatant. Anyone who'd seen her handle gunshot victims during gang wars knew Carmen Rodriguez didn't lose battles. That bet once too big with my career. Carmen's eyes held the same steel I'd seen in emergency rooms. Fine. Let's see how she likes federal investigators crawling through her finances. While Carmen filed complaints with both the nursing board and FBI, Dale Pinkerton launched enhanced compliance reviews targeting anyone who'd supported me. The crunch of gravel under his expensive shoes became daily soundtrack as he prowled our neighborhood with measuring tools. Mrs. Smith got hit first. $500 fines for unauthorized garden expansion that had existed 3 years. Tom Rodriguez faced $300 penalties for fence violations that were never problems until he defended my accommodations. The message was crystal clear. Support the disabled veteran. Face HOA terrorism. Face HOA terrorism. But Brenda's nuclear attempt was trying to have me declared mentally unfit. I was returning from a client meeting when Judy Whitmore cornered me in the parking lot, her perfume mixing with diesel garbage truck fumes in a nauseating cocktail of suburban corruption. "Miles, we're concerned about your episodes," she said with funeral director compassion. several neighbors reported erratic behavior, aggressive confrontations. The board thinks you need professional evaluation. The ball's on this woman. She was literally attempting to gaslight me into questioning my own sanity, hoping I'd voluntarily commit for psychiatric evaluation. Judy, what specific erratic behavior? The yelling, threatening language toward Brenda. I've never yelled at Brenda. Every interaction is recorded. I pulled out my phone. Want me to play our conversations? Her face went chalk white. In her rush to destroy me, Judy forgot that lies work better when they can't be instantly disproven. Then came Brenda's masterstroke and her fatal error. Friday evening, Carmen discovered our mailbox had been surgically tampered with. Address numbers repositioned, locking mechanism damaged, making mail delivery impossible. Federal mail tampering carries serious charges, but Brenda was too desperate for rational thought. What she didn't know, I'd installed additional security cameras after Tom's warning. High-define footage captured her Range Rover parked nearby during the exact tampering time frame. But Saturday morning brought Brenda's most psychotic escalation yet. Zoe's soccer coach called with news that made my vision go red around the edges. Mr. Rodriguez, I need to tell you about yesterday's disturbing conversation. Coach Martinez's voice was tight with controlled anger. A woman identifying as HA representative approached me about Zoe's home situation. She implied domestic violence issues affecting Zoe's performance. That's when something ancient and military activated inside me. Not rage, pure combat calculation. The taste of violence filled my mouth like copper pennies. Targeting my business crossed one line, attacking C. Armin's career crossed another, but spreading domestic violence rumors to my daughter's coach. Brenda had just declared total war on a combat veteran's family. She'd made the last mistake of her pathetic HOA career. But here's what this suburban sociopath didn't realize. While she was busy spreading lies about domestic violence, I was coordinating with Agent Walsh to document every federal crime she committed. Mr. Rodriguez, Agent Walsh said when I called with updates, she's committed mail tampering, professional harassment, and defamatory statements to community figures. We have enough for a full federal investigation. The beautiful irony. Every attack Brenda launched created more evidence for federal prosecutors. Her desperation was literally financing her own legal destruction. Agent Walsh, she's planning something nuclear for the annual meeting. Can we be ready? Oh, we'll be ready. She laughed grimly. This woman kicked a federal hornet's nest and has no idea what's coming. Standing in my kitchen that night, watching Brenda's Range Rover cruise past for the 4th time, the taste of approaching justice was sweet as desert rain after drought. The annual meeting was going to be a bloodbath, and for once, I wouldn't be the one bleeding. Brenda had spent 3 weeks building a perfect federal case against herself. Time to collect. The discovery that would destroy Brenda came from the last place I expected, my wife's insomnia. Tuesday night, 3 days before the annual meeting, I found Carmen at our kitchen table at 2 a.m. Surrounded by HOA financial documents Tom Rodriguez had quietly slipped us. Coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she was laser-focused on spreadsheets with the same intensity she used tracking life or death medication dosages in the ER. Can't sleep? I asked, sitting beside her. Something's been bothering me about this whole situation, she said, not looking up from the papers. Brenda's harassment feels too desperate, too panicked. In the ER, when patients get this agitated, it usually means they're hiding something bigger than the obvious injury. Carmen had always been brilliant at pattern recognition. It's what made her such a good trauma nurse. She'd spot internal bleeding before doctors caught it, notice medication interactions others missed. Now she was applying that same diagnostic skill to our HOA nightmare. Look at these landscaping payments, she said, finger tracing across months of expenditures. Car Property Services gets massive checks. $3,200, $4,800, sometimes $6,500 for neighborhood enhancement. But Miles, what enhancement? Our landscaping looks exactly the same as 18 months ago. The metallic taste of realization hit my mouth as the name clicked. Clearwater. As in Brenda Clearwater. That's what I thought too.
C.
Armin's voice carried the same deadly calm she used when catching doctors and medication errors. And look at this timing pattern. Every huge payment happens right after Brenda faces personal financial stress. She pulled out her laptop, cross-referencing dates with the methodical precision of someone whose mistakes could kill people. The smoking gun emerged like evidence at a crime scene. Range Rover payments, divorce attorney fees, her daughter's college tuition, every major expense in Brenda's life coincided with mysterious HOA landscaping expenditures. Holy, _____, I whispered, watching 18 months of systematic theft unfold in spreadsheet form. She's been embezzling HOA funds through fake contracts with her own company. But Carmen wasn't done digging. It gets worse. Look at these monthly consulting fees to Dale Pinkerton, $800 every month for financial oversight services. He's not just helping her steal, he's getting paid to look the other way. The beautiful, devastating truth hit me like incoming mortar fire. My family's entire nightmare was a distraction campaign. All the harassment about ugly stickers and federal overreach. Smoke and mirrors to hide the fact that Brenda was robbing every homeowner in Desert Winds. She needed a villain, I said, pieces clicking with mathematical precision. Someone to focus community anger while she looted the treasury. My disability accommodated. Ions were just convenient cover. Carmen's forensic accounting skills she'd learned during nursing school to catch insurance fraud had uncovered $47,000 in systematic theft. Every violation notice, every fake fine, every attack on our family was designed to create chaos that would hide her embezzlement. The smell of victory mixed with cold coffee as I called Agent Walsh with news that made her voice sharpen with prosecutorial hunger. Agent Walsh, we've uncovered systematic embezzlement spanning 18 months. Mr. Rodriguez, that triggers our financial crimes unit. This isn't just civil rights violations anymore. This is organized criminal activity with federal wire fraud implications. The scope was staggering. Brenda hadn't just discriminated against a disabled veteran. She'd been robbing 847 families while using my civil rights case as distraction. Every homeowner paying monthly fees was funding her luxury lifestyle. But here's what made my combat-trained heart sing. Brenda still didn't know we'd discovered her crimes. She was planning Friday's annual meeting as a public execution of my family, completely unaware that federal investigators had 18 months of documented theft. The woman thought she was orchestrating my destruction. Instead, she was walking into the most perfectly constructed legal ambush in suburban history. Justice was coming, and it had Brenda's name on the warrant. Wednesday morning, I woke up feeling like a general planning D-Day. Carmen's discovery had transformed our defensive battle into an offensive campaign, and I had exactly 48 hours to coordinate the most satisfying legal ambush in HOA history. The first call went to Agent Walsh, who confirmed what I'd hoped. The FBI Financial Crimes Unit was salivating over Brenda's embezzlement scheme. Mr. Rodriguez, we fast-tracked everything. Friday night's going to be very interesting for Miss Clearwater, but federal agents showing up at a community meeting would spook Brenda into lawyering up immediately. We needed her to hang herself with her own rope on camera in front of the entire neighborhood. The trap had to be perfect. Rebecca Torres arrived at my house an hour later, armed with legal briefs and a smile that could cut glass. Miles, this is prosecutorial Christmas morning. We're not just fighting discrimination anymore. We're exposing organized crime disguised as suburban governance. While Rebecca coordinated with federal prosecutors to time evidence releases for maximum impact, I focused on the technical infrastructure. My IT background was finally useful for something beyond debugging code. I installed a professional audio-video system in the community center positioned to capture every word and facial expression during Brenda's planned public humiliation of my family. The sway. Et irony. HOA rules required recorded meetings for transparency. Brenda's own regulations would document her destruction. Carmen took charge of evidence presentation, designing what she called financial health charts that would make embezzlement visible to the least financially literate homeowner. Years of explaining complex medical conditions to panicked families had taught her how to make devastating information digestible. Look, she said, spreading poster boards across our dining room table. Timeline here, payments here, correlation between Brenda's personal expenses and mysterious HOA charges here. Even Dale will understand this. Tom Rodriguez became our community coordinator, quietly organizing concerned homeowners to attend Friday's meeting. Each ally received a specific role. Mrs. Smith would ask about landscaping contracts. Neighbor Bob Wilson would question consulting fees. Retired teacher Linda Parks would demand financial transparency. The beautiful part, every question would sound spontaneous while actually being coordinated psychological warfare. But our secret weapon was David Park, an independent accountant who lived 2 streets over and owed Carmen a favor after she'd saved his diabetic wife during a medical emergency. David volunteered to present preliminary audit findings that would make Brenda's theft impossible to deny. "I've seen embezzlement schemes before," David explained, reviewing Carmen's evidence. "But this is amateur hour. She didn't even try to hide the correlations. It's like she wanted to get caught." Thursday brought our most crucial ally, Judge Patricia Hernandez, agreed to attend as a concerned community member after Rebecca explained the situation. Having the federal judge who'd originally ordered my accommodations present would add constitutional weight to the evening's revelations. "This woman has been using federal court orders as cover for financial crimes," Judge Hernandez said during our phone call. "I take that personally." The community center setup took all Thursday afternoon. I positioned cameras for optimal angles, tested audio equipment, and created lighting that would make Brenda's facial expressions visible to viewers in the back rows. The smell of fresh coffee and homemade cookies, courtesy of Mrs. Smith, masked the scent of approaching justice. Meanwhile, Agent Walsh confirmed the FBI would monitor remotely, ready to move if Brenda attempted to destroy evidence or flee. "We'll let her dig the hole as deep as possible before we act," Walsh explained. "Sometimes the best prosecutions write themselves." Carmen prepared evidence packets for every homeowner containing financial summaries that showed how much money each family had lost to Brenda's theft. "When people see their actual dollar losses," she said, "they'll want blood." The psychological elements were crucial. Rebecca coached our allies on staying calm during Brenda's inevitable meltdown, maintaining credibility while she destroyed herself. Sarah Kim from Channel 12 confirmed live broadcasts starting at 7:30 p.m., ensuring Brenda's downfall would reach thousands of viewers. Friday morning brought final preparations. I tested all recording equipment, one last time, ensuring multiple backup systems would capture every moment of Brenda's self-destruction. The taste of anticipation was metallic and electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. Tom Rodriguez confirmed attendance. 180-plus homeowners planned to show up, triple the usual turnout. Word had spread through the community that Friday's meeting would be historic, though only my allies knew exactly how historic. The timing was military precise. 7:00 p.m. meeting start. 7:30 p.m. live news coverage. 7:45 p.m. Judge Hernandez arrival during Brenda's planned victory speech. 8 p.m. financial evidence presentation. 8:15 p.m. federal investigation disclosure. By evening, Carmen and I stood in our kitchen reviewing the battle plan one final time. Outside, Brenda's Range Rover cruised past our house for what I hoped would be the last time, her vanity plates gleaming in desert twilight. "She has no idea what's waiting for her," Carmen said, watching through our window as our neighborhood dictator drove toward her own execution. "No," I agreed, "she doesn't. But she's about to learn what happens when you steal from 847 families while terrorizing a disabled veteran." The trap was set. Time to spring it. Thursday brought Brenda's most desperate and dangerous escalation yet. She discovered I was planning something for Friday's meeting, and panic was making her sloppy. It started with a phone call that made my blood run cold. Carmen answered, while making breakfast, her voice shifting from pleasant to ice, cold fury within seconds. "No, you cannot speak to my husband about emergency accommodation removal," she said, hanging up hard enough to rattle our coffee mugs. "Let me guess, Brenda. Worse, some lawyer claiming to represent emergency HOA legal services, saying they needed to discuss immediate removal of non-compliant federal installations for community safety. They wanted you to meet them at the community center this morning." The trap was obvious. Get me alone, possibly with fake legal documents or witnesses trying to trick me into voluntarily removing my court-ordered accommodations before Friday's meeting. The desperation stunk like rotting meat in desert heat, but Brenda's real masterstroke came through Dale Pinkerton's emergency financial audit. By noon, he was going tour-door, claiming the HOA faced immediate financial crisis, requiring emergency assessments from all homeowners. Mrs. Smith called me, voice shaking with elderly confusion. "Miles, this man says I owe $400 immediately, or face foreclosure proceedings. He has official-looking papers. The beautiful irony, while Dale was creating fake financial emergencies, Carmen and David Park were finalizing documentation of the real financial crimes. Every lie Dale told created more evidence of obstruction and fraud. But Brenda's nuclear option revealed just how cornered she felt. She called the police. Officer Jake Morrison arrived at my door Thursday afternoon, body camera recording, as he delivered the most ridiculous complaint I'd ever heard. "Sir, we received reports of threatening behavior and possible weapons, stockpiling, related to tomorrow's HOA meeting," Morrison said, clearly embarrassed by the absurdity. "Mind if we take a look around?" I welcomed him in, knowing my house contained nothing more dangerous than kitchen knives and Carmen's medical supplies. Morrison confirmed what I suspected. Brenda had filed a false police report, hoping to get me arrested before Friday's meeting. "Mr. Rodriguez, I see no weapons, no threatening behavior," Morrison said, his body camera documenting my full cooperation. "Ma'am," he continued into his radio, "the complaint appears to be unfounded. What Brenda didn't realize, false police reports are crimes, and Morrison's body camera had just documented another federal offense for Agent Walsh's growing file. The afternoon brought her most psychotic escalation. Judy Whitmore appeared at Zoe's school, claiming to be a family services consultant, investigating our home environment based on community concerns. The school secretary thankfully was smarter than Brenda's schemes. "Ma'am, we'll need official documentation and advance scheduling for any family services consultation," she told Judy, while calling Carmen immediately. When Carmen arrived at the school, volcanic with maternal fury, Judy was still in the office, spinning lies about our unstable family dynamics and my erratic veteran behavior. "Are you seriously targeting my 16-year-old daughter with false child welfare claims?" Carmen's voice could have melted steel beams, because impersonating social services is a felony. Judy fled like a coward, but not before the school's security cameras documented everything for our federal case file. By Thursday evening, Brenda's desperation had reached complete psychosis. She was making mistakes faster than I could document them. False police reports, fake legal threats, impersonating government officials, attempting to manipulate child services. But her final error was the most telling. Tom Rodriguez called with intelligence that made my tactical heart sing. "Miles, I just overheard Brenda on the phone with someone," he whispered from his backyard. "She's planning to have security personnel at tomorrow's meeting to maintain order during disruptive homeowner removal. Private security at an HOA meeting." The woman was so terrified of exposure that she was hiring muscle to intimidate families she'd been robbing for 18 months. "Tom, did you get any details about this security? Some company called Desert Protection Services. She wants them there by 6:30 p.m. before the meeting starts." Perfect. Brenda was about to use intimidation tactics against federal investigation subjects while FBI agents monitored remotely. She was building her own RICO conspiracy case in real time. That evening, I updated Agent Walsh on Brenda's increasingly desperate criminal behavior. False police reports, fake legal threats, impersonating officials, hiring private security to intimidate witnesses. Each action added years to her potential sentence. "Mr. Rodriguez, she's in complete panic mode." Walsh observed, "People this desperate make catastrophic mistakes. Tomorrow is going to be a prosecutor's dream." Standing in my kitchen Thursday night, watching Brenda's Range Rover cruise past for the 5th time that day, I realized she was trapped like a cornered animal. Every escape route I'd left her led to deeper legal trouble. The taste of approaching victory was sweet as desert honey. Tomorrow, Brenda Clearwater would discover what happens when suburban tyrants declare war on federal law, disabled veterans, and basic human decency. She'd chosen this fight. Now she'd face the consequences. Friday morning brought Brenda's final, most desperate gambit, and the mistake that would guarantee her federal prison time. I was testing audio equipment in the community center when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Remove accommodations by 5 p.m. or face consequences beyond HOA violations. This is your last warning." Threatening text messages to federal investigation subjects. Brenda was apparently competing for the Stupidest Criminal of the Year award. But her real masterstroke came through what I can only describe as suburban psychological warfare. By 10 a.m., 3 different homeowners called reporting intimidation visits from HOA enforcement representatives. Bob Wilson sounded genuinely shaken. Miles. Two men in suits showed up claiming I owed immediate payment for supporting disruptive homeowner activities. They had official-looking paperwork demanding $800. Linda Parks was next. These people said attendance at tonight's meeting would be noted and could affect my community standing. They felt like threats. Even Tom Rodriguez got visited. Professional-look guys with clipboards claiming they were documenting homeowner compliance before tonight's meeting. They took photos of my house. The pattern was clear. Brenda had hired private investigators or security personnel to intimidate anyone planning to support me. The woman was running a protection racket disguised as HOA enforcement, but her nuclear mistake was targeting Mrs. Forsman. Smith. The elderly woman called me at noon, voice trembling with fear. Miles. Two men came to my house demanding I sign papers saying you were dangerous and threatening community safety. When I refused, they said my immigration status might be reviewed if I continued supporting troublemakers. That's when something ancient and protective activated in my combat veteran brain, threatening an elderly immigrant with deportation over HOA politics. Brenda had just committed federal extortion. I called Agent Walsh immediately. She's using private security to intimidate witnesses with immigration threats. Mr. Rodriguez, she just added witness tampering and federal extortion to her charges. Walsh said, voice sharp with prosecutorial hunger. We're moving surveillance teams into position now. The afternoon brought Brenda's most psychotic escalation yet. She tried to cancel the annual meeting. At 2 p.m., every homeowner received an official-looking email claiming unexpected legal complications require postponement of tonight's annual meeting, pending resolution of ongoing community disputes. The audacity was breathtaking. After 18 months of harassment, embezzlement, and fee. Daryl crimes. Brenda thought she could avoid consequences by simply canceling the meeting where her destruction was scheduled. But Tom Rodriguez had prepared for this contingency. As a concerned homeowner, he'd already filed proper notices under Arizona HOA law, requiring the meeting proceed as scheduled. Brenda couldn't legally cancel without a supermajority vote, which she definitely didn't have. The meeting is happening, Tom confirmed when I called him. I've got legal backing from the state. She can't run from this. By 4:00 p.m., Brenda's desperation reached complete meltdown territory. Carmen intercepted another threatening phone call, this one claiming to be from Federal Accommodation Enforcement, demanding I report to a Phoenix office building for immediate compliance verification. More fake federal officials. Brenda was apparently trying to trick me into leaving town before the evening's revelations. Miles, this woman has lost her mind, Carmen said after hanging up. She's inventing government agencies now, but the call gave us crucial intelligence. Background voices revealed Brenda was coordinating from the community center, apparently setting up her own audio-video equipment to control the meeting's narrative. Perfect. While Brenda installed her propaganda systems, my professional-grade recording equipment would capture every word for federal prosecutors. The real gift came at 5 p.m. when Dale Pinkerton made his final desperate move. He appeared at my door with a cashier's check for $50,000, claiming it was compensation for voluntary relocation to resolve community tensions, a bribery attempt on my doorstep, while FBI surveillance teams watched from unmarked vehicles. Dale, are you seriously trying to pay me to leave town before tonight's meeting? It's just Brenda thinks maybe we can resolve this amicably, he stammered, sweat beading despite the evening coolness. Avoid any unnecessary complications. I accepted the check, evidence for federal prosecutors, while my doorbell camera recorded every word of Dale's bribery attempt. Dale, I'll consider your offer. I lied smoothly, but I'm still attending tonight's meeting. His face went pale as printer paper. Miles, please, you don't understand what you're walking into. Actually, I understood perfectly. I was walking into the most satisfying legal ambush in suburban history, armed with 18 months of documented federal crimes and surrounded by FBI agents. As Dale scurried back to his car, I realized Brenda and her accomplices had spent the entire day committing fresh federal offenses while trying to avoid prosecution for previous crimes. By 6 p.m., the taste of approaching justice was metallic and electric. Carmen stood beside me in our kitchen, both of us watching through the window as Brenda, Range Rover, cruised past one final time before parking at the community center. She has no idea what's waiting for her in there, Carmen observed. No, I agreed, but she's about to get the education of her lifetime. Time to collect 18 months of unpaid dues. The community center was packed beyond capacity. When I arrived at 6:45 p.m., over 200 residents crammed into a space designed for 100. The air crackled with nervous energy and the competing scents of fresh coffee and expensive perfume from overdressed HOA board members. Brenda stood at the front podium like a general addressing troops, flanked by two intimidating men in dark suits, her hired security consultants. Dale Pinkerton hunched over a laptop, nervously adjusting his presentation slides while Judy Whitmore worked the crowd like a politician, spreading last-minute poison about my family. Sarah Kim's news crew set up in the back corner, their camera lights adding theatrical drama to what was about to become the most explosive HOA meeting in Phoenix history. Welcome Desert Winds residents, Brenda began, her voice artificially sweet with underlying menace. Tonight, we address the ongoing disruption caused by certain homeowners who refuse to respect community standards. She clicked to her first slide, a blown-up photo of my pathway markers with the heading Federal Overreach versus Community Values. For 18 months, we've red government-mandated eyes that violate everything Desert Winds represents, she continued, warming to her theme. Tonight, we vote on emergency measures to restore our neighborhood's integrity. The crowd murmured approval, exactly what Brenda had orchestrated, but she had no idea what was waiting in the wings. At 7:15 p.m., Tom Rodriguez requested the floor during homeowner comments. Brenda, before we discuss aesthetic concerns, shouldn't we review HOA financial health? Some residents have questions about recent expenditures. Her face twitched almost imperceptibly. Financial reviews are handled by qualified professionals. Tonight's focus is community disruption. Actually, Mrs. Smith stood up, voice carrying surprising strength. I'd like to know about these large payments to Clearwater Property Services. What landscaping improvements justify $47,000 in 18 months? The room went dead, silent. Brenda's face cycled through confusion, recognition, and pure terror in 3 seconds flat. Those are legitimate maintenance contracts reviewed by our accounting firm, she stammered, glancing desperately at Dale. But David Park was already walking to the front with his audit materials. Actually, I've reviewed those contracts. The services described were never performed. That's when Judge Patricia Hernandez made her entrance. The federal judge walked through the back doors at exactly 7:30 p.m. Presence immediately shifting the room's energy from suburban drama to constitutional crisis. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as residents recognized the woman who'd issued my original accommodation orders. Your Honor, Brenda's voice cracked with panic. This is a private HOA meeting. Actually, it's a public meeting discussing federal court orders I issued, Judge Hernandez replied calmly, taking a seat in the front row. I'm here as an interested observer. Brenda's meltdown began immediately. This is harassment. Government officials have no business interfering with private community governance. Miss Clearwater. The judge's voice cut through Brenda's hysteria like surgical steel. Destroying federal disability accommodations is a serious crime. Embezzling homeowner funds while using those accommodations as distraction makes it organized criminal activity. The room exploded. 200 voices erupted simultaneously as residents processed what they just heard. Embezzlement, federal crimes. Their HOA president wasn't just a tyrant, she was a thief. Dale Pinkerton tried to flee but found his exit blocked by one of Tom's nephews, an off-duty Phoenix police officer who'd been strategically positioned near the doors. I want to see those financial records, Bob Wilson shouted from the middle of the crowd. Show us the landscaping contracts, Linda Parks demanded. Where's our money? Mrs. Our money. Mrs. Our money. Mrs. Smith's voice carried over the chaos with surprising force. Brenda's hired security consultants looked confused and nervous. They'd been hired to intimidate residents, not manage a federal crime scene. That's when I finally stood up. The room quieted as residents turned to watch the disabled veteran they'd been told was a neighborhood menace. Sarah Kim's camera focused on my face as I approached the podium where Brenda stood, trapped like a cornered animal. Brenda, you've spent 18 months calling my court-ordered accommodations ugly eyes that ruin property values, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the packed room. But the real eyesore was the thief standing at this podium, stealing from 847 families while using my disability as cover. I pulled out the evidence packets Carmen had prepared. I pulled out the evidence packets Carmen had prepared. Every resident here has lost an average of $55 to your fake landscaping contracts. Dale Pinkerton received kickbacks for helping you steal, and tonight you tried to bribe me with $50,000 to leave town before this meeting. Brenda's face went chalk white as the room processed the magnitude of her crimes. You called me a fake disabled veteran, gaming the system, I continued, looking directly into Sarah Kim's camera. But the only person gaming any system was the woman who's been robbing this community blind while terrorizing a combat veteran's family. The mic drop moment came when Agent Walsh, voice crackled through the room's speaker system. Miss Clearwater, this is the FBI. Please remain where you are. 6 months later, I'm sitting in the Desert Winds Community Center, where Brenda Clearwater's empire collapsed, watching our first annual Accessibility Awareness Festival draw over 2,000 visitors from across Phoenix. The irony is sweet as desert honey. The same room where she tried to humiliate my family is now showcasing adaptive technology and celebrating inclusive community design. The immediate aftermath of that explosive October meeting was swift and satisfying. Brenda pleaded guilty to federal wire fraud, civil rights violations, and mail tampering, receiving 18 months in federal prison plus $94,000 in restitution. Dale Pinkerton cooperated with prosecutors, getting probation in exchange for testifying about the embezzlement scheme. Judy Whitmore faced federal harassment charges and moved to Nevada after social media made her life in Phoenix unbearable. More importantly, the HOA settlement of $187,000 for civil rights violations became seed money for something beautiful, the Desert Winds Accessibility Foundation. Carmen and I established the nonprofit to provide legal assistance for disabled homeowners facing HOA discrimination nationwide. Rebecca Torres serves as legal director, handling cases from California to Florida, where HOA boards think they can override federal disability law. The transformation of Desert Winds itself has been remarkable. Tom Rodriguez, elected HOA president, unanimously after Brenda's arrest, implemented transparent financial reporting and inclusive governance. Property values rose 23% over 6 months, not despite our accessibility features, but because of them. The neighborhood became known as the most welcoming community in Phoenix for families with disabilities. Mrs. Smith's garden expansion was approved unanimously and became a showcase for adaptive gardening techniques. Her Buddha statue now anchors a meditation corner that residents love. The metallic sound of measuring tapes and violation notices has been replaced by children's laughter from our new accessible playground, built with settlement funds and designed by Zoe's high school engineering class. The legal precedent established powerful protections for disabled homeowners. Rebecca's federal case became required reading in civil rights law classes, and the Department of Justice uses our documentation to train investigators on HOA discrimination patterns. 3 other Arizona communities facing similar situations contacted our foundation for help. Apparently, suburban tyrants are more common than I'd realized. Carmen discovered a passion for forensic accounting that led to consulting opportunities with HOAs across Arizona. Her skills at detecting financial fraud honed during our battle with Brenda now prevent other communities from suffering similar theft. She's testified in 4 embezzlement cases and helped recover over $300,000 stolen from homeowner associations. Zoe, inspired by her family's fight for justice, won a full scholarship to Arizona State University for her essay on disability advocacy and community organizing. She starts pre-law next fall with plans to specialize in civil rights. Apparently, watching her parents destroy suburban corruption was better career guidance than any counselor could provide. The media attention brought unexpected opportunities. Sarah Kim's Emmy-winning investigation of HOA governance led to congressional hearings on federal oversight of community associations. My family testified before a House subcommittee about the need for stronger protections against discriminatory enforcement. The phrase federal monitoring required now appears on HOA governing documents in communities with histories of civil rights violations. Our annual festival has become Phoenix's signature accessibility event. This year's highlights include adaptive technology demonstrations, legal rights workshops, and Carmen's popular How to Spot HOA Financial Fraud seminar. Local restaurants donate accessible food stations, and the mayor proclaimed April Accessibility Awareness Month in honor of our advocacy work. The Personal healing has been just as important as the public victories. My pathway markers, those ugly orange eyes Brenda hated so much, are now surrounded by beautiful desert landscaping that complements rather than competes with accessibility features. Neighbors' kids drew chalk art around them last week, turning federal court orders into community art. Standing in my front yard this morning, watching children play on equipment designed for every ability level, I realized something profound. Brenda's attempt to erase my disability from her perfect neighborhood vision led to creating the most inclusive community in Arizona. The taste of justice served has been sweet, but the flavor of community built is even.